Hi guys. I got asked what's the difference between owning and maintaining a turbocharged car versus a naturally aspirated car yesterday. Then I was like, okay, oh, I've done a video of explaining turbocharged cars a year ago or something. But I realized something with YouTube, because as time goes by, as your videos stack up more and more, and as your fan base grew or the audience grew, like your 50,000th audience will not know when your channel was about the size of 1,000 subscribers, you did a video explaining about stuffs like turbos and NAs, and they wouldn't be able to find it. They don't even know the keyword to find it. And YouTube's whole interface that has been around since YouTube was created isn't really the best examples of user experience, right? In fact, anything that Google is making now is pretty much a bad example of user experience. UIs that promotes user experience, probably except Gmail. Other than that, everything else is pretty hard to click around in the Google verse. Anyway, okay, let's explain then. Naturally aspirated engine, what does that mean? That means these engines, they breathe in air naturally, and they breathe in and exhale naturally. So these are naturally aspirated engines. And then you have turbocharged cars, which are forced induction engines that they compress air before they send it into the combustion chamber. Sorry. This is ridiculous. This lane is ridiculous. Anyway. Sorry. Okay. So, how does air burn, right? If you light a candle and then you put a glass over it, very quickly the candle will go out, right? Even though the flint is there, the candle is there, the flame was there, what wasn't there? Oxygen, right? As we all know, we need oxygen to burn, and in a naturally in the natural atmosphere, or 1 atmospheric pressure, 20% is oxygen, right? You finish that up, you're left with carbon dioxide, you're left with nitrogen, and the flame gets put out, right? So that's the same with a combustion chamber. What is a combustion chamber, you may ask? Okay, that's where our engine block, you've seen commercials of those pistons moving up and down, right? As they go up, they form the smallest of chambers possible, they squirt fuel, air, and boom, it burns, right? And the air-fuel ratio is about 13:1 or 14:1, okay? That is the ratio to burn fuel. That means 1 part of fuel, 13 or 14 part of air to burn, okay? And of course, if the air is pure oxygen, that will be, you may require less of that, but that's roughly the measure, okay? You need that much oxygen as a ratio, as a burning ratio. And after you burn, you blow your exhaust gas out, right? A straightforward engine will be after the burning was done, right? After the pistons go up and down, they go up, squirt air, fuel, and then boom, go down. And then now these are all exhaust, and then the piston will go up again and push all these out. How do they go out? Valves, right? One valve open, the other closes, and then the air comes in, right? And then squirt some fuel, and then compress, and then spark plug, pop, boom, right? As it blows, it goes down, and then the valve that allows fresh air to come in will close, and then the other valve would open. That valve allows the burnt air, all the smoke, to go out. That's the basic fundamental architecture of an engine, right? And how these two valves are controlled, well, there are camshafts with springs, and the camshafts has wheelies, and the wheelies have belts that connects to the crankshaft, so there is a correlation between how they all move. It's all calculated nicely so that when the pistons go up and down, and then the valves close and open accordingly. Okay, that is the whole logic of an engine, how it works. So in a straightforward naturally aspirated car, your air comes in from your intake, right? Your car has your grills and all that. That will absorb air in, suck it in, and then the air goes through a filter just to clean up all the filter off all the dirty stuffs, the insects and all that nonsense. Goes through the filter and then goes into the engine bay, and then the engine bay to burn the air-fuel mixture. Piece of shit. Anyway, and then once the exhaust is burnt, all you need to do is just from your engine block, you have the exhaust manifold, right? You heard people saying that, right? The exhaust manifold will route from the engine block all the way 4, 2, 1, and all the way to the back, and that's where the exhaust goes up. That's it. That's a naturally aspirated engine's architecture. Now, turbocharge. A turbocharged car is harnessing the exhaust gas, okay, to create more power for the engine. How does that work, right? Exhaust gas is useless. How does it create more power? That's where the magic comes in, alright? So exhaust gas moves out at a very, very high speed, okay? And this speed can be increased if you introduce a compression. That means like a funnel, right? Imagine you have all these air wanting to rush out, and then you squeeze them through a funnel, and they're gonna have a high speed of flow, very high rate of flow, right? So then you're like, how do you harness this energy of a high speed useless gas trying to go out? Very hot, probably toxic, and very high speed, pretty much useless. Okay, how do you harness this into an energy? Then you think, now just now I mentioned the air-fuel mixture, right? 13 parts of air is because we need that much of oxygen, right? And remember, we studied since we were young, oxygen is 20%. What does you mean by 20%? Let's say I take a cup, right? There's a cup here, and then immediately I put a cover on top, and then I use a super laser scanner to scan the molecules and atoms inside it, right? Immediately, under normal circumstances, under normal conditions, when you cover the cup and then you immediately measure 20% or 23 or whatever, I couldn't remember it, doesn't matter. 20% are oxygen molecules, right? And this is the one that we wanted to burn. The same cup, the cup itself may be a, let's say is 500 ml, right? 500 ml cup, which is 500 cc, right? 500 cc, 20%, that makes it 100 plus. 100 plus. Okay, 100-ish cc are oxygen. Now you're thinking, there's a limit to how much I can suck in, right? I can only suck in that much because my lungs, the size are the same. The same goes with an engine, right? There's only so much you can suck in at one go. You can try your best to suck in more air, but there's a limit. Now, how do you increase the amount of oxygen with every sucking in of air. How do you increase the amount of oxygen molecule inside to make the burning even stronger, more powerful? Because you need that oxygen, right? Right? Now, this is where a compressor comes in, right? We've learned, I mean, humanity has learned that you will be able to compress air, right? If you have a simple compressor. A simple compressor will be one with a single directional valve, right? You pump in air, and then as the air tries to rush out, the valve will close, and then you pump in again, it will close. That's how you increase the pressure of air into that chamber, a very strong chamber, right? But in a turbocharged car, you can't be operating like that, right? Takkan you keep compressing air in, and then there's a button to release it, which is not wrong, but that's not the application of it, because when you are using energy to store the air in without using that energy in any way, you are actually converting the fuel that you burn into an exercise of compressing air in. That means your engine not only needs to run the wheels now, your engine is also running the air compressor, and it's not doing anything, right? So that, in terms of thermodynamics, isn't that ideal in terms of producing more power, because it's just not in a reciprocating manner, right? It doesn't continuously do so. So what you do, how do I compress air? How do I compress air? Aha! A chamber with a turbine. The turbine would speed up and suck in a lot more than whatever down the pipe can reasonably flow. Then you will have compressed air, because, right, you take this much amount of air, rush it through a smaller pipe, keep pushing them in. That means all of them will be compressed. Think about the trains on an Indian train station, right? There's so many Indians trying to go up on the train. Very high compression of fellow Indians on those trains, right? They're all stacked together. Or Japan, for that matter, high compression Japanese. Okay, anyway. Okay, so you get the idea now? Now we're trying to get a lot of air, compress them through a pipe. So this pipe, if you let the air flow in normally without any forcing, right? This amount of air, let's say this is 1 liter. Within this 1 liter, 20% are oxygen molecules, right? But now you push a lot of them in. It's also 20%. However, within this 1 liter volume, volumetrically 1 liter, you have actually compressed more air than this Birax should be handling. So some of you have heard of 1 bar turbo, 1.2 bar. What does it mean? 1 bar means 1 atmospheric pressure. Currently it's 1 bar. Okay? Currently it's 1 bar. But when you compress more inside, 2 times 2 bar, right? That means the molecule and the oxygen molecules inside doubles up, and this travels through. So how does the compression works? Via a turbo. So a turbo is something like a snail device, right? You've seen those, right? It's like, oh, it looks like a snail, right? There's always 2 parts. Why 2 parts? Because one routes in the exhaust, the other one routes in the intake. So the exhaust would rush through this part. As they rush through, they spin the turbine. The turbine spins up, right? So the exhaust routes through here, then they go out. And then in the process, it spins up the turbine. Now the turbine is connected to the other side with another turbine through this chamber, right? And that spins up as well. As that spins up, we are able to route in the air that the engine breathes, right? Then it compresses them and then goes out. But the problem with this is heat, because they're next to each other, right? When you have heat, when you're heating up the air, they expand. So you're trying to compress them, but it got heated up by the exhaust gas. They expand again. They want to expand again, right? So you go through the intercooler, right? The intercooler will cool them back down to reduce the expansion of air. Then only they feed them into the engine, which has all the oxygen molecules. Okay, that's roughly how it works. So you're using exhaust gas that comes out, spools the turbo. The turbo is connected to the rod, right? The turbo has 2 chambers, right? And that compresses the air. More air gets sucked in, goes through the intercooler into the engine bay, and then when you boom, there are more oxygen molecule in there, and your car burns stronger, goes faster. So literally you are recycling. So buying a turbocharged car is already recycling. So you're helping the environment, technically speaking, if you are doing anything that is recycling, compared to someone who buys a hybrid car. Anyway, joking. Yeah. So a turbocharged car needs so much more piping, cooling, turbocharging, exhaust, intake. You need way more stuffs in front, and they're more expensive to produce because you have more parts. When you have more parts, you're more prone for failures, and that's just the logic, right? You have one thing, you have one thing to spoil. You have two, you have two. You have five, you have five, right? You have 10, 10. So yeah, I hope I answered your question, even though I took a longer route. Just want to explain that turbocharged cars, of course, will have a potential of higher maintenance solely because, by logical terms, it has more equipment. And why does it have more equipment? Because it needs to function like this, and to function like this will allow you to achieve the objective of getting more power, technically speaking, out of the same field, out of the same atmospheric pressure. Yeah. Cheers, guys.